Pernell Roberts hated him more than anyone. In the final tape he tried to erase reveals a truth darker than the show he walked away from. The 6 hours he paid $50,000 to bury weren't confessions, they were accusations. A list of names he wanted dragged into the grave with him. And after 40 years underground, the truth that resurfaced isn't about Bonanza anymore. It's about the war between honesty and the machine built to silence it. Hollywood loved to pretend Bonanza was pure and perfect. Nu sa het like khóa de trong phim trong. The show looked warm on screen, a family ranch, a wise father, and sons who always did the right thing. But behind the cameras, everything was built Jung Numut Buk Tran Dik Dan Bong De Banchakanja. The network pushed the show as a symbol of American values, a safe world where nothing truly dangerous was allowed to exist. Bonanza looked clean, Nordic dung, Lentening Lua Chon, Kong Sak Chut now. Scripts were rewritten to avoid anything uncomfortable. Characters were softened, conflicts were simplified, and every episode had to end in a way that made the audience feel good. It wasn't honesty, it was packaging. The more the ratings climbed, the tighter the packaging became. Pernell Roberts named they didorona hit. He knew the world on screen was fake, too pretty, too safe, too willing to ignore real problems outside the studio gates. He watched writers remove anything that challenged the audience. He saw producers cut out anything that questioned the myth of the Old West. And each time he spoke up, the room went quiet, as if he was the problem for not playing along. The show grew bigger. The myth grew stronger. And the truth disappeared under Ensang Kwathen Kung. Bonanza wasn't just a TV hit. It became an illusion people wanted to believe. But illusions always have a price. And Roberts was the only one willing to pay it. Bonanza looked gentle on screen, but the truth behind it was sharp enough to cut. Pernell Roberts saw it from the first season. The stories weren't just simple, they were built on stereotypes that turned whole communities into caricatures. Native people were written as savages. Mexican characters were lazy or foolish. Haitian characters existed only as jokes. Black characters were trapped in roles that kept them small. And every week those images were broadcast into 60 million homes. Roberts tried to fight it. He argued with writers. He pushed back on scenes that crossed the line. But the machine behind the show didn't want honesty. It wanted comfort. The network didn't care about the damage. They cared about ratings. As long as audiences felt good, the truth didn't matter. Each script made the gap wider between the man he was and the role he played. He knew he was helping spread something toxic, even if the show wrapped it in warm music and family lessons. He knew a whole generation of kids was learning history through a lens that erased real people and replaced them with myths. The more he spoke up, the more he was labeled difficult. The more he pushed, the more doors closed. Bonanza kept growing. His patience kept shrinking. And one day, the cost became too high. Staying meant lying. Leaving meant losing everything. Roberts chose the truth, even if nobody wanted to hear it. Chapter Una Lorne Green. The nice guy who looked away, Lorne Green looked perfect on screen. He played the wise father, the calm leader, the man America trusted. But to Pernell Roberts, that image collapsed the moment real problems showed up. Roberts went to Green again and again, asking him to speak up about the racist scripts. He wasn't asking for a fight. He was asking for simple support from the man who had the most power on the set. Green always gave the same answer. It's just a story. Or I don't want Roberts. Roberts watched him smile, shake hands, collect his paycheck, and pretend nothing ugly was happening. Green liked harmony more than honesty. He liked being loved more than being right. and that made him dangerous in a quiet way. To Roberts, silence wasn't neutral. Silence helped the scripts go forward. Silence let stereotypes air in millions of homes. Silence made everything look normal when it wasn't. And Greene stayed silent for 6 years. The moment that broke everything came when Roberts begged him one last time. Greene looked at him with gentle eyes and said he needed to pick his battles. Roberts realized Lorne had never picked a battle in his life. He chose comfort every time. Roberts didn't hate Greene for being cruel. He hated him for being soft in a world that needed strength. Chapter Doze. The man who sold the show. David Dordert created Bonanza. He was the one who told Roberts the show would tackle race, violence, and morality. Roberts believed him. That was why he signed on. But after the first season, the scripts changed. The network didn't want hard stories. They wanted simple ones. Dordert changed with them. Roberts confronted him early. He told Dordert the show had lost its purpose. Dordert shrugged and said he had bills to pay. He said he didn't control everything. He said the network made the rules. Roberts saw those excuses for what they were, ways to avoid responsibility. The breaking point came with the script about Adam and a native woman. It looked progressive on the surface, but the entire story existed to show why they could never be together. The ending forced her to die so Adam could return to where he belonged. Roberts went straight to Dortert's office. He said the script was poison. Dordert finally cracked. He shouted that Roberts was destroying the show. Roberts fired back that the show was destroying people by repeating racist ideas to millions of viewers. Dordert told him to leave if he didn't like it, and Roberts did. Dordert became rich. Roberts became unemployed, and that was the wound that never healed. Dordert taught Roberts the harsh rule of Hollywood. Integrity is expensive, and most people aren't willing to pay. Chapter 3, NBC Executives, the match and built to crush him. When Roberts said he was leaving, NBC didn't ask why. They didn't care about racism or ethics. They cared about the product. Bonanza made hundreds of millions. A star walking away threatened their money. And NBC handled threats the way every powerful system does. They crushed them. They called Roberts into a quiet room with 3 men in suits. No warmth, no small talk. They told him Bonanza was too big to lose a lead actor. They said his departure would set a dangerous example for other actors. They said he could stay and behave, or he could leave and disappear. Roberts chose to leave. They smiled and told him he'd never work in television again, and they meant it. For 14 years, every door closed. Casting directors refused to meet him. Networks ignored him. Everyone whispered that hiring Roberts meant angering NBC. Nobody wanted that risk. Roberts survived on stage work and small theaters. No spotlight, no big roles, just enough money to live. He lost his career because he wouldn't lie. And NBC wanted the world to see what happens to people who walk away from success. He didn't just resent them, he feared them. A machine that big doesn't apologize. It just moves on after it, flattens you. Chapter 4, Dan Blocker. The friend who broke his heart, Dan Blocker, was the one Roberts never expected to lose. They bonded from day one, two Southern men who didn't quite fit Hollywood. They shared lunches, long talks, real friendship. Dan complained about the racist scripts too. He agreed with Roberts behind closed doors. He said the writing was wrong. But talking is easy when nothing is on the line. Action is harder. When Roberts told Dan he was leaving, everything cracked. Dan didn't argue about the racism. He didn't deny the problems. Instead, he said the quiet part out loud. Leaving wouldn't change anything. The show would go on. The scripts would stay the same. The only life destroyed would be Roberts's. To Roberts, that wasn't an argument. That was surrender. Dan said staying was loyalty. Roberts said staying was being complicit. That one disagreement ended a friendship built over years. Roberts tried to fix it. He called, wrote letters, reached out through friends. Dan never responded. When Blocker died young, Michael Landon told Roberts he had no right to be there. It was the only time Roberts admitted, he cried. Not for the show, not for his career, but for the friend who chose comfort over courage and blamed Roberts for choosing the opposite. Chapter 5. Michael Landon. The winner who proved him wrong. Michael Landon didn't hide who he was. He came to Hollywood to win. He played the game better than anyone on set. He charmed producers. He followed the rules. He asked for more scenes, more close-ups, more control. And it worked. Roberts never called him evil. He called him practical. Landon understood the industry. He understood that success mattered more than ethics. And he was right, at least in Hollywood terms. Just before Roberts left, Landon visited his dressing room. It was the only personal talk they ever had. Roberts explained the racism, the lies, the reason he couldn't stay. Landon listened quietly, then said something that haunted Roberts for decades. No one remembers the man who was right. They remember the man who stayed. Landon stayed. He became the face of Bonanza. He learned producing, directing, and writing. Then he built Little House on the Prairie and later Highway to Heaven. He died rich, beloved, and successful. Roberts didn't hate Landon for winning. He hated him because Landon understood the system better than he did. Because Landon proved that compromise worked. Because Landon's career soared while his collapsed. Landon exposed the truth Roberts never wanted to accept. In Hollywood, the man with principles stands alone, and the man who plays the game gets everything. The fans were the one group Pernell Roberts never expected to fear. Hollywood was predictable. Executives protected money. Producers protected their jobs. Actors protected their careers. But fans were supposed to protect the people they loved on screen. Roberts learned the hard way that this wasn't true. Fans protect the characters, not the actors. And when an actor walks away, fans turn fast. The hate started the moment his exit was announced. Letters filled his mailbox, not disappointed letters, angry ones. People said he betrayed them. They acted like he abandoned a real family instead of a TV set. Some letters were so hostile he stopped opening them. But more kept coming. Hundreds, thousands, all for walking away from a show he believed had turned poisonous. Things got worse outside the mailbox. People recognized him in restaurants, in grocery stores, on sidewalks. Some yelled, some confronted him. One old woman spit in his face. Roberts asked her why. Her answer was simple. You left us. Not you left the show. Not you left the cast. You left us. For Roberts, that moment changed something. He realized fans didn't see him as a man. They saw him as property. Something they owned at Seat PM every Sunday. Something that belonged to them as long as the theme song played. And when he stepped away, they felt robbed, betrayed. Personal anger over a fictional world. He tried to explain the racism in the scripts. He tried to explain why he couldn't stay. But fans didn't care. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the version of him that made their evenings easier. The version who didn't ask hard questions. The version who stayed quiet on screen and off. When he didn't fit that version anymore, they rejected him completely. Even years later, when he struggled to rebuild his career, the anger didn't fade. A magazine, published a small interview during his theater years. Roberts said he didn't regret leaving. Fans reacted with the same rage they had in 1965. They called him arrogant, ungrateful. They said he thought he was too good for them. They acted like his decision had personally injured their lives. Trapper John, M.D., should have changed things. It was a hit. It proved he wasn't a failure. But the press framed it differently. They said he was finally redeemed, as if leaving Bonanza was a sin he needed forgiveness for. Fans didn't see his success as vindication. They saw it as a long overdue apology. Even when he won, they made him feel like he had done something wrong. The worst part wasn't the anger. It was the persistence. Hollywood eventually moved on. Studios forgot. Producers retired. Networks replaced the people who blacklisted him. But fans never changed their minds. Decades later, people still approached him with the same question, the same judgment, the same disappointment. Why did you leave Bonanza? Not one asked about the racism. Not one asked about the scripts he fought. Not one said he had done the right thing. They remembered only the exit, not the reason. To Roberts, that was the deepest wound. Fans didn't want morality. They wanted comfort. They didn't want truth. They wanted routine. They didn't want a man with principles. They wanted Adam Cartwright forever, frozen in place, never aging, never questioning, never walking away. He learned something dark from them. Fame isn't love, it's possession. And when the audience thinks they own you, they punish you for trying to own yourself. Hollywood crushed him for a while, but the fans crushed him for life. In the tapes, Roberts said the words slowly, like he had carried them for decades. The real enemy wasn't Hollywood. The real enemy was the people who refused to let me leave. Pernell Roberts thought leaving Bonanza would cost him a job. He didn't know it would cost him a lifetime. The moment he walked off that set, the ground under him shifted. Work disappeared. Roles vanished. His phone stopped ringing. Hollywood didn't just shut the door, it welded it shut. And Roberts had to learn how to breathe outside a world that no longer wanted him. He went from primetime fame to small-town stages. One night he played to a packed theater. The next night, 20 people. He did whatever he could to survive. Regional plays, summer stock, tiny productions nobody reviewed. The man once watched by 60 million people now worked for barely enough to pay rent. Fame didn't fade, it evaporated. But the financial cost wasn't the hardest part. The silence was. The silence of old friends who didn't return calls. The silence of studios that pretended he never existed. The silence of agents who said taking him on was bad business. Roberts had stood for something, but now he stood alone. Every time he thought about apologizing, about crawling back, about pretending he didn't care about the scripts or the stereotypes, he remembered why he left. He remembered the episodes he refused to film. He remembered the faces of kids who would watch those stories and believe them. That memory kept him from breaking. It also kept him from working. When Trapper John, M.D., finally arrived, it felt like sunlight after years in a basement. A lead role, a steady paycheck, respect. People said he was redeemed, as if success proved he regretted leaving Bonanza. They never understood. It wasn't redemption. It was survival. And even 7 seasons couldn't undo 14 years of being shut out. By the time he reached old age, Roberts understood the full cost. Principles don't rebuild a lost career. They don't bring back friends. They don't fix a reputation shaped by people who never knew the truth. Principles don't pay the rent. They only keep your conscience clean while everything else falls apart. In the tapes, his voice softens when he says it. Not bitter, not angry, just honest. Being right cost me everything. And the world didn't care. but I still couldn't do it any other way. In the end, Pernell Roberts understood what most actors learn too late. Hollywood doesn't punish you for being wrong. It punishes you for walking away. He left a hit show, and the world treated it like a crime. Not because he was mistaken, but because he refused to stay quiet. That was his real offense. He broke the rule everyone in the industry knows, but no one says out loud, never make the audience uncomfortable. Roberts didn't break that rule with his acting. He broke it with his honesty. He challenged the stories people wanted to believe. He exposed the cracks behind the perfect image, and he paid for it every day of his life, yet he never took back a single word. He never apologized for leaving. He never pretended the scripts were harmless. As he grew older, he stopped expecting people to understand. He knew most viewers remembered the show, not the truth. They remembered the ranch, the music, the family. They didn't remember the stereotypes hidden under all that warmth. They didn't remember the real reason he walked away. To them, he was just the man who left Bonanza. But Roberts didn't want sympathy. He wanted clarity. He wanted people to see that doing the right thing doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it looks like losing. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like a man sitting alone in a small apartment, wondering if a different choice would have made life easier. The tapes end quietly. No big speech, no dramatic twist. Just a man accepting the life he chose and the cost that came with it. He says he would do it again, even knowing he would lose his career's friendships and the love of fans he once trusted. To him, the price of staying would have been even higher. His final thought is simple. Being right doesn't guarantee victory. It doesn't guarantee respect. It doesn't guarantee happiness. Being right just means you chose the truth over convenience. And sometimes that choice leaves you standing alone. But Roberts believes something else too, something small, something stubborn. Maybe somewhere in the future, someone will look back, see the truth buried in those old scripts, and finally understand why he walked away. Maybe, and for him that tiny hope was enough.